Okay, so I got all my assets up. I got my image file loaded up. I got my logo up here. So let's go ahead and get ready to code. So what I'm going to do first is, if you look in the standard skeleton code that it gives you, there's already some code there. And in particular, there's this image here, snack icon.png, which is this kind of Rubik's Cube looking thing. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. So if I right click on it, notice that this menu comes up. And one of the things I can do, oops, let me get this out of the way. And try that again. Dismiss these warnings that come up. Right click on it, and one of the options is delete. So let's get rid of that. Also, in the components file, there's this file called assetexample.js. So there's an example of what a component file might look like. So let's also go ahead and get rid of that. So right click on it, and I gotta dismiss this also. Let me try that again. Right click on asset example, and bottom option is to delete, and it's gone. Okay, so now we get this red stuff coming up because in my app.js file, you can see it's red now. It's because this file referenced that sample component that we just deleted. So let's not worry about that. So let's go ahead and start coding. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start completely from scratch. So I'm going to select everything and just delete it. Okay, we're going to start from a completely blank slate. Nothing there. Now you see the simulator, the emulator on the right here is a little upset. It's in red. That's because there's no code there. It's expecting some kind of code there. Whenever there's an error that it can't compile your app and display it for you, you're going to see that turn red. Also, the bar on the bottom of the screen is red as well. Let's not worry about that right now. The only reason why it's there is because we don't have any code there. So let's not worry about that. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up our main app. Remember our main app, app.js, capital app.js. You don't want to ever delete this file. You always want to keep it there, and it's always got to be called capital A app.js. Okay, so our main file, just like all our files in our React Native app, consists of three sections. At the top is the import section, in the middle is the main body, and at the bottom are the styling things. Okay, so in the import section, there's certain imports that you always have to have no matter what. And those are import React from React. Now that seems kind of strange. So let's look at that. Now notice how it color codes certain keywords. So it kind of gives you a hint as to what things are. Import, that means you're going to pull something in from outside. React, this blue word, notice that's in capital R. That's important. Capitalization is important. React, so that's the name of the library that we're going to pull in. From, and in single quotes, I got React. Now notice that's a small r, not a capital R. Then I have a semicolon at the end. Okay, so import React from React. That sounds like a funny sounding thing, but that pulls in all the required stuff that we're going to need. Okay, now we're going to need some more things. So that just pulls in the basic stuff. We want our app to have some core components, some basic built-in components. Remember, there's the view component, which pretty much every page of your app has to have a view. Everything is inside a view. So we got to pull in at least a view. And we're also probably going to want to pull in maybe some text. I don't know. But let's at least pull in a view. Okay, so normally we'd also want to pull in whatever basic built-in core components like views or images or text that we're going to use in this app or in this component of our app. Now, for now, let's just pull in a view. We've got to have a view for sure, but we don't know what else we're going to need yet. So let's just pull in a view. So the import statement to pull in a view looks a little different. Okay, so it says import. Now notice the curly braces this time. In the previous statement, line 1, we didn't have those. Import curly brace, capital V view from, in single quotes, React-native, and then semicolon. Okay, so there's our second import statement. So it looks a little different from the first. You can see there's some similarities, of course, but looks a little different. Let's not worry too much now about what and why those differences exist. Okay, so now for now, just understand that that's how the language works. Later on, as you get more accustomed to it and comfortable with it, then we can delve a little bit more deeply into, okay, why does the second one have curly braces and the first one doesn't? And why are you pulling in from different places? Okay, but let's for now not worry about that. So let's just pull in those basic things. So that's our import section. Then our middle section is the main body. Okay, so it's always going to have this form, always going to have this pattern. Export, and I spelled it wrong, export, default, function, and the name of your component with some parentheses and then a curly brace. Okay, so export means that we're going to make it available to the outside world. Default means that's the one that's going to assume it's going to start with. Function is just a small piece of code that does something. And here's the name of the function. The name of the function is capital A app. It's always got to be capital A app for your main entry point for your app. You can't change the name of that. Just like you cannot change the name of this file, app.js, where it lives, you can't change the name of the app. And generally, when you make a component, the name of the file has to match the name of the function inside of it. If those two are different, then you're going to have some problems. Okay, so what are the parentheses? Well, the parentheses are if we wanted to give it an additional bit of information that it needs to do its job or that it can use to customize itself, that's where we would put it. And those are called parameters. But for our main entry point, no, there's nothing we need to give it. It's just going to do its job without any outside information. It can just start itself up. Okay, so that was empty parentheses. And then the curly braces, well, we kind of seen that in JavaScript, which is what this basically is. Curly braces are grouping symbols that are used to group different blocks of code together. So you're going to see a lot of those curly braces in JavaScript. So the curly braces just tell us that everything inside that set of curly braces is part of this main body of our app. It's part of this function. Okay, so inside this function, we've got to put the code that's going to make our app. Now, for now, let's just put in a view. We can fill that view with the different components and things later on. But let's just put a view. So inside the main body, there's also a pattern or a template that we've got to follow. There's what's called a return statement. So return means I'm going to do some stuff. I'm going to figure out some computations. I'm going to put some stuff together, and then I'm going to return it or kick it back to the device so I can display it. So return means the function is going to do some stuff. It's going to put some stuff together, and it's going to return it or send it back to the thing that called it, which in this case is the main mobile device. It's going to send it back to the mobile device, and it's going to display it on the screen so somebody can see it. So we're going to have a return statement. We got some parentheses. Inside that parentheses, that's kind of like parentheses for math. Those are going to be stuff that groups things together so it knows that everything inside those parentheses is all part of this main function. Okay, and then after I close the parentheses, there's a semicolon. You'll notice that a lot of lines end with a semicolon. That's kind of like a marker for JavaScript. That means here's the end of the line. Okay, so inside that parentheses, then finally we can put our stuff. We can put our view. So for now, we're just going to put a view component. Remember, this is where it starts to look like HTML because the components sort of look like HTML tags. You have an opening and a closing, and the closing is distinguished because right after the opening angle bracket of the closing tag, there is that slash, there's extra slash. So for now, I'll just put an empty view. Okay, so we got our basic app. Now notice what happened. Once I put that in, if you look in the emulator on the right, now it's happy. The red stuff is gone. Now I got just a plain blank white canvas. So now it's happy. Now it's okay because I got some code there that actually does stuff. Okay, so we got that part. And then in the third section, we put our stylings. Now, let's not worry about our stylings for now. We'll come back to that later. As we refine the app, we'll come back to the stylings. But for now, we'll just leave that third section blank. We got just a basic app here. Okay, so what comes next? Well, we got a blank canvas. We got no errors, but we got a blank canvas. So now we've got to set up our two components. So in our next segment, we're going to talk about how you can set up these components. How do you set up the files for the components and put those in?